In the belly of Surulere, Lagos, where life hangs between laughter and exhaustion, a scent began to haunt a third-floor flat. It wasn't the scent of fear or sweat. Lagos had enough of that. It was something more dangerous, Hugo Boss. The type that stayed on pillows and floated in whispers. Inside that narrow apartment with cracked tires and plastic ceiling roses, something was unraveling. Unlike the silent mode behind their bathroom mirror, it didn't announce its presence, it just grew. Kemi's house still looked clean. But nothing about the air was innocent anymore. The neighbors still called her "fine madam" when she walked past, hips swinging, lashes curled, her eyes never looking twice at the same man. They thought it was harmless, just a pretty woman who liked attention. But attention was only the bait. Kemi had learned something cruel about desire: it fills the silence when love gets tired. Her husband Deji, gentle and predictable, was fading behind the glow of her reflection. His routine was a ghost. And ghosts don't know how to touch anymore. She had once loved him. Not just with her body, but with fire. The kind that made her boy rise barefoot and sing praise songs while he watched her dance in wrappers. But routine is a thief. It doesn't just steal time, it steals hunger. And in its absence, Kemi learned to feast on other flavors. Sometimes it was the banker who dropped his card in the supermarket. Sometimes it was the politician who mistook her for his niece. And sometimes, shamefully, it was just loneliness in a man's voice. Each time she returned home, she washed her hands with vinegar and guilt. Not enough to cleanse her, just enough to pretend. Her lace underwear dried faster than truth. And though her mirror never judged her, it watched her closely. Some nights she stared into it, waiting to feel remorse. But guilt, she learned, is patient. It doesn't scream. It watches. Like the neighbor in flat 3B whose curtains twitched every time her door clicked shut at noon. Kemi didn't want to destroy her marriage. She only wanted to feel alive. That's what she told herself, between the tangled sheets of other men. They touched her, yes. But it was her reflection she worshipped. Power, not passion, thrilled her. The way they trembled under her body, the way they begged, it reminded her she was still visible. Still radiant. Still someone. Even if her husband had forgotten how to say so. The ceiling fan clicked as it spun, stirring the stale air above their bed. That Friday, she had just changed the bed sheets, white ones with red floral swirls. She didn't hear the knock. She didn't expect Deji until much later. But that day, Lagos traffic played no games. And when he entered, soaked from the rain, holding her silk scarf between two fingers like a snake's skin, the air changed. Not loud. Not violent. Just still. The kind of stillness that belongs in mugs. He asked her a question. A simple one. One she had rehearsed an answer to for months. But her lips betrayed her. Words deserted her. And in their place, silence did the talking. He didn't wait for her to lie. He just placed the scarf on the dining table, beside the wedding photo she refused to take down, and left. The door didn't slam. But something else inside her did, hard and permanent. She didn't cry. Kemi wasn't built for tears. Not anymore. What she felt was colder. Like standing naked on a rainy balcony, watching your favorite dress fly off the line and knowing you deserved it. The scarf was the only clue she didn't clean well enough. That Hugo Boss had lingered like a betrayal's aftertaste. And now, she was alone. Not the type of alone that means single, the type that means nobody would believe you even if you told the truth. Days passed. The neighbors whispered. The woman who sold akara outside avoided her eyes. The compound's generator stopped running. Or maybe it was just that Kemi had gone deaf to everything except her own guilt. She started pacing the apartment barefoot, circling the rooms like she was chasing the version of herself that still had dignity. Her phone buzzed, old lovers checking in. But she felt nothing. The power was gone. The rush had died. She realized none of them ever really wanted her. They wanted the escape she gave them. And now, she was the one needing rescue. She tried to go back to church. sat at the back pew in tight jeans and dark sunglasses, hoping God couldn't see past her mascara. But even the hymns felt like confessions. She stopped singing. When they said, "Peace be with you," she smiled too wide. Her old choir mistress gave her a look, not cruel, just pity. The kind that burns more than insults. And as she left the building, the sky opened up and rained like an answer she didn't want to hear. At home, the silence grew louder. The drawers no longer closed smoothly. Deji's clothes remained untouched, folded like lies waiting to be unpacked. She started sleeping on the floor, claiming the heat was too much. But really, she just couldn't face their bed anymore. The floral sheets mocked her. Each petal reminded her of someone who had pressed against her back in the hours her husband thought she was grocery shopping. She started hating the smell of Hugo Boss. It reminded her of how stupid she'd been to think secrets don't shed their skin. One night, she stood at the window, looking down at the street. Her eyes caught a man arguing with a woman, hands flailing, thunder booming behind them. She smiled bitterly. At least they were still talking. At least they still had fire. Conflict, she realized, is not the worst thing in marriage. It's silence. It's distance. It's folding shirts for a man who no longer wears them. That's when she realized, Deji wasn't angry, he had given up. And giving up is worse than hatred. It means you're no longer worth the fight. The next day, she wore a yellow dress she hadn't touched in months. The one Deji once said made her look like morning sunshine. She stood before the mirror, turning left, turning right, wondering if she could still be that woman. But no amount of powder could hide the grief forming beneath her eyes. It wasn't sorrow for being caught, it was mourning the self-respect she had traded for meaningless attention. She laughed suddenly, loud and dry. How ironic, she thought, that the one thing she craved most was now the very thing she had destroyed. She walked into the kitchen, made omelette, just how he liked it, smooth, no lumps. She set the table. Lit a candle. Turned off the fan so it wouldn't blow out the flame. Then she waited. Hours passed. Her food got cold. The candle melted unevenly. Outside, a neighbor's baby cried. She blinked slowly, realizing how cruel time was. It stretches when you're guilty. It strangles when you're alone. And tonight, it laughed in her face. At midnight, she opened their wedding album. Page by page, she stared at the younger version of herself, the one who swore she'd be enough. Her fingers traced Deji's smile in each photo. She couldn't remember the last time he smiled like that in real life. Maybe love doesn't disappear all at once. Maybe it chips away, flake by flake, until only the frame remains. And by the time you notice, the picture inside has faded to something unrecognizable. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on the floor with her knees to her chest, the scarf folded beside her like a dead pet. She didn't pray. She didn't plan. She just listened, to the distant generators, to passing sirens, to her own heartbeat slowing like a dying fan. She wondered if Deji would ever come back. Not physically, but emotionally. Would he ever touch her again and not flinch? Would his eyes ever soften? Or had she turned their home into a museum? Where love is only something visitors remember once lived here. As morning crept in, bathing the room in a dull orange glow, Kemi stood up and poured herself a glass of water. Her hand trembled. Not from fear, but from the weight of knowing she couldn't undo what was done. Outside, Lagos began to stir again, buses honking, preachers shouting, the city pretending nothing ever changes. But Kemi knew better. Her world had shifted. And no matter how hard she tried to pretend, some things, once broken, echo forever.